You know the classic story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? It feels like this terrifying mystery about a man literally split in two. But what if the story isn't really about two men at all? What if it's about the violent, shattering breakdown of a single fragile self? Well, in this explainer, we're going to use the psychoanalytic theory of Jacques Lacan to unlock the story's deepest secrets. Secrets about who we think we are and what we're really seeing when we look in the mirror. Right from the start, Dr. Jekyll lays it all out in his confession. He doesn't see himself as just one person. Nope. He sees his own mind as a battlefield where two completely different natures are at war. You've got the respectable doctor on one side and the depraved monster on the other. And the key for him is that he believes, deep down, he is radically both. This is the problem he's trying to solve. But what if he's wrong? This is where we pivot from the story to the theory. Jekyll is convinced he has two distinct selves fighting for control. But psychoanalysis comes in and asks a totally different question. What if that solid, stable sense of self we all think we have is actually just an illusion? An image we fell in love with a long, long time ago. A reflection that we've mistaken for the real thing. To really dig into this, we're going to need a special tool from our theoretical toolkit, Jacques Lacan's theory of the mirror stage. Now, this is a huge idea in psychoanalysis because it tries to explain how our sense of self, our very idea of I, even comes to exist in the first place. So what exactly is the mirror stage? Well, Lacan points to this incredibly important window in early childhood. It's that moment when a baby sees its reflection and, for the very first time, gets it. It recognizes that image as me. It's this huge aha moment where the idea of a self is born. But, and this is absolutely crucial, that sense of me is first found as an image, as something outside of itself. Lacan actually breaks this whole process down. First, the infant exists in a state of what he calls fragmentation. It just feels like a mess of uncoordinated limbs and sensations, no real center. Then comes the recognition. It sees a complete, whole person in the mirror. This leads to what Lacan calls a jubilant assumption. The baby is thrilled. It joyfully identifies with this powerful, unified image. But here's the paradox, the catch. The I that gets created is fundamentally alienating because it's based on that outside reflection, not the messy, chaotic reality of what's going on inside. And this is where you can really see the split, right? Internally, the infant feels what Lacan calls a fragmented body. It can't control its movements. It feels a kind of primordial discord. But the mirror shows it a unified gestalt, a total, complete form that promises a future of mastery and control. Our entire sense of self is built on the promise of that external image. Lacan actually has a specific name for this perfect picture, the imago. You can think of it as the idealized snapshot of me that the baby just grabs onto. And this imago doesn't go away. It becomes the blueprint, the very foundation upon which our ego is built for the rest of our lives. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the self we all walk around with is basically a suit of armor. It's protective, sure. It gives us a sense of wholeness and lets us operate in the world. But it's an armor built on an external image, an alienating identity. It's a fiction that we use to paper over the chaotic fragmentation we still feel underneath. Okay, so with that theory in our back pocket, let's head back to Jekyll's lab. Because if the mirror stage is all about building a social self by identifying with that ideal image, Jekyll's experiment is a terrifying journey in the exact opposite direction. He's trying to reverse the process, to shatter the mirror. You can hear the exhaustion in Jekyll's own words, can't you? He is sick and tired of wearing the armor of his respectable identity. He feels trapped by the constant need to push down his more undignified pleasures. So his goal is to chemically break apart that unified self that society demands, to literally separate the good from the bad and finally get some relief. And this is where you see it's a perfect, almost terrifying reversal. The mirror stage takes all those fragmented parts and builds them into a unified social I by suppressing our raw instincts. Jekyll's potion does the opposite. It takes that unified I and intentionally shatters it to set those very instincts free. He is actively going back in time, searching for that pre-social fragmented state the infant leaves behind. And at first, it's incredible. It's like a twisted version of that baby's joyful moment in the mirror. He doesn't feel horror when he becomes Hyde. He feels pure elation. He feels younger, lighter, happier. It's the absolute thrill of throwing off that heavy suit of social armor and just letting loose all the raw energy it was designed to contain. This This is Jekyll's own mirror stage, but completely backwards. When he first sees Hyde's face in the glass, he doesn't see a monster. He feels a leap of welcome. Because in that face, he recognizes an authentic, undiluted expression of a part of himself that his public identity had to crush. He looks at this thing and says, this, too, was myself. Yeah, that feeling of welcome, it doesn't last long, at all. The freedom Jekyll was so desperate for comes with a terrible price. The part of himself he set free starts to feel less like a liberated self and more like a hostile alien parasite. To get what happens next, we need one more key idea from Lacan, méconnaissance. It's a fancy word, but the idea is pretty simple. It means misrecognition. It's the way our ego constantly denies its own fragile, constructed origins. We misrecognize that ideal image in the mirror as our true self. And Jekyll is about to perform a new, much deadlier version of this. And boom, here it is in black and white. To deal with the horror of what Hyde is doing, Jekyll starts to misrecognize him as a totally separate person. Hyde alone, that was guilty. He's creating a psychological firewall, treating his own dark desires as if they belong to someone else entirely. It's a trick to make his conscience shut up. The irony here is just devastating. Jekyll's whole reason for doing this was to escape the alienation of being Dr. Jekyll, but in his search for authenticity, he ends up creating a new internal alienation that is so much more terrifying. Hyde is no longer a part of him. He is an other. And this quote, this shows the absolute rock bottom. The breakdown is complete. Jekyll doesn't see a reflection of his own desires anymore. He sees the slime of the pit, something dead, shapeless, not even human. This is pure horror and disgust, a total rejection of the very self he had so joyfully welcomed in the mirror just a few months earlier. So it all comes crashing down in that final, locked room scene in Jekyll's laboratory. This is where the mirror becomes the star witness to the complete and utter collapse of identity. Even Jekyll's butler, Poole, knows something is deeply wrong, and he points right to the mirror. He tells the lawyer Utterson that the cheval glass, that big mirror in the lab, has been a silent observer to all the horror. It's basically the focal point of the crime scene. So when they finally smash down that door, the scene is just bizarre. They find the body of Edward Hyde, still twitching, wearing Dr. Jekyll's clothes, which are way too big for him. It's a grim visual punchline about his shrunken, repressed nature. And Dr. Jekyll? He's just gone, vanished, completely replaced by his other self. And the mirror? What does it show in the end? Not Jekyll, not Hyde. It shows chaos. It reflects their own terrified faces, and the fireplace, not as a single steady flame, but as something fragmented, sparkling in 100 repetitions. The single, unified self is gone, and all that's left is a shattered mess. And these are Jekyll's last haunting words from his confession. He's mourning his ultimate loss. He can no longer even control his own reflection. He can't see his own face in the mirror anymore. The image he created has completely taken over. The alienating identity has literally consumed him. So we're left with this really unsettling question. When you read Jekyll and Hyde through Lacan's eyes, it stops being just a horror story and becomes a cautionary tale about identity itself. It suggests that our sense of who we are is this fragile deal we make with our own reflection. Jekyll's real tragedy wasn't that he had a dark side. We all do. It was that he believed he could just cut it off from his good self, forgetting they were just two sides of the same complicated, reflected image. He didn't just unleash a monster. He shattered the very mirror that was holding him together.